Found the letter on a Tuesday morning, sitting inside a cardboard box my son had left on my front porch, not handed to me, not placed gently, left, like something you put out for the garbage truck. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this started. Because it didn't start with the box. It started the way most things in my life started, with me trying to do the right thing. I'm 67 years old. I spent 31 years working as a civil engineer for the city of Baltimore, built a career out of patience and precision, raised 2 kids in a house I paid off by the time I was 52. My wife, God rest her, passed 8 years ago from pancreatic cancer, and when she went, she took something out of me I never got back. But I kept going. That's what you do. You keep going. My son. I'll call him my son because that's what he is, whatever else he's become, is 41 years old. His name doesn't matter right now. What matters is that after his mother died, he started coming around more, calling more, showing up for Sunday dinners he hadn't cared about in years. And I was grateful. I was lonely and I was grieving, and I thought, well, maybe losing her brought us closer. Maybe something good can come out of something terrible. I should have asked more questions. His wife came with him everywhere. She was pleasant enough on the surface, laughed at the right moments, helped clear the table, always remembered to ask about my knee. But there was something behind her eyes when she looked around my house that I couldn't name. Not admiration. Something more like calculation. My house is not a mansion. It's a 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood that's changed a lot since 1989 when I bought it. The neighborhood got better. Property values went up. I had the place appraised 2 years ago, and the numbers surprised even me. A little over $900,000. 35 years ago, I paid $145 for it. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because it matters to this story. It matters a great deal. My daughter lives in Portland, Oregon. She's a physical therapist, busy, good at her job. We talk every Sunday without fail, but she's not here. She wasn't here when things started to change. I want to be honest about that. Distance is not an excuse for what happened, but it's part of the picture. About 14 months ago, my son called me on a Wednesday evening. Said he and his wife were having some financial trouble. Said their landlord had decided to sell the building and they needed to move fast. Said he hated to ask, but could they stay with me just for a little while, just until they found something new? I said yes. Of course I said yes. He's my son. They showed up that Friday with a moving truck, not overnight bags. A moving truck. I didn't say anything. I helped them unload. I made dinner. The first month was fine, more or less. The second month I noticed things. Small things, at first. His wife rearranging the kitchen without asking. New furniture appearing in the living room. My living room replacing pieces my wife had chosen. I'd come home from my morning walk and find that my reading chair had been moved to the hallway because it blocked the flow. I said something about the chair. My son looked at me the way you look at someone who's being unreasonable. Dad, we're just trying to make it livable. I asked him when it stopped being livable for the 30 years before he moved in. He didn't answer. His wife changed the subject. 3 months in, the job search conversation happened. I asked how the apartment hunting was going. My son sat down at the kitchen table his mother picked out, and said, very calmly, that they'd been thinking. He said that the housing market was brutal. He said that with what I was sitting on, with the equity in this house, it didn't make sense for me to hold on to something this size all by myself. I asked him what he meant. He said maybe it was time to think about downsizing. Said I could sell the house, take a portion of the proceeds, and they could use their share to buy something together. A multi-generational home, he called it, like it was a trend piece he'd read somewhere. I told him I wasn't interested in selling my house. He said, Dad, be reasonable. I want you to remember those 3 words, because I heard them a lot over the next several months. Every time I said no to something, every time I expressed concern, every time I pushed back, Dad, be reasonable. His wife started bringing up my age more. Little comments. Had I been to the doctor recently? Was I still driving at night? She'd watch me come down the stairs and ask if I needed help like I was 85 and recovering from surgery. I'm 67. I run 3 miles every other morning. But suddenly in my own house, I was being treated like a liability. My son started calling my financial advisor. I found this out by accident. She's a woman I've worked with for 20 years. And she called me to give me a heads up that someone had contacted her office claiming to be handling my affairs. She wanted to confirm she should not speak to anyone without my explicit authorization. I asked her to describe the person she'd spoken to. She described my son. I drove home and I confronted him directly. He didn't apologize. He said he was worried about me. He said he was just trying to protect me. He said, "Dad, what happens if something happens to you? Do you even have a plan?" I told him I had a will, an estate attorney, and 31 years of managing my own finances without his assistance, and that he would do well to remember that. He went quiet. His wife excused herself from the room. I thought maybe that was the moment. Maybe that was when it turned around. It was not the moment. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my attorney, not the financial advisor, my actual estate attorney, a man I've known since the early 90s. He told me that someone had come to his office in person, claimed to be acting on my behalf due to declining mental health, tried to get information about my estate documents. My attorney, who has known me for 30 years, called me immediately. I sat in my car in the driveway for a long time after that call. I didn't go inside for almost an hour. I sat there and I thought about my wife. I thought about what she would say. She was the kind of woman who saw through people fast. She used to say, "Walter, you love people so much you can't see them clearly." She called me Walter when she was being serious. She was right more often than I admitted. I made a decision sitting in that car. I called my daughter in Portland. I told her everything. Not the filtered version. Not the version where I downplayed things to protect her feelings. Everything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Dad, I need you to do exactly what I tell you." She'd already figured out something I hadn't. She'd been noticing things from a distance, comments my son had made to her, questions about the house, once asking her whether she thought I was fully competent. She hadn't said anything to me because she was afraid of creating conflict. We talked for 2 hours that night. When we hung up, we had a plan. I want to be clear about something before I tell you what happened next. My son is not an evil person. I don't believe that. I believe he is a weak person who married someone who told him what he wanted to hear, and who decided that the easiest solution to his own failures was to claim what someone else had built. That's a different kind of dangerous. But I want to be clear about it, because this story is not a cartoon. He is still my son. That said, what he did next was unforgivable. I came home one afternoon to find a man in my living room I had never seen before, sitting on my couch. My son introduced him as a realtor, said they had called him to do a walkthrough, said they were just getting information, no pressure, just wanted to see what the market looked like. In my house, without my permission, without a conversation, a stranger walking through the rooms my wife decorated, looking at the ceilings, checking the windows, making notes on a clipboard. I asked the man to leave. He looked at my son, not at me. My son said, "Dad, just hear him out." I said, "This is my house. I asked you to leave." The realtor left. My son followed him out, and they stood on the porch for 10 minutes. I watched through the window. That night at dinner, no one spoke. His wife ate with her eyes on her phone. My son sat across from me with the expression of someone who believed he was being wronged. I went upstairs and called my attorney again. The next 2 weeks moved faster than I expected. My daughter flew in from Portland. She didn't announce it. She arrived on a Thursday evening with a suitcase and a folder of documents she'd had prepared by an elder law attorney she'd consulted in Oregon. My son didn't know what to make of her being there. He was cautious around her in a way. He wasn't cautious around her. In a way, he wasn't cautious around me. His wife was suddenly very warm, very interested in catching up, very eager to make her feel welcome. My daughter smiled and said all the right things and gave nothing away. I don't know where she learned to do that. Not from me. 4 days after she arrived, we had the conversation. The four of us sat at the kitchen table. My daughter opened the folder. She explained, clearly and calmly, that she had spoken with an attorney and was aware of the contacts made to my financial advisor and estate attorney. She explained that any further contact of that nature would be considered an attempt to interfere with my legal affairs, which carried real consequences. She explained that I had updated my estate documents, which was true. We had done this quietly the week before, and that I had also added a trusted contact designation to all my financial accounts, meaning any unusual inquiries would be flagged and reported to her directly. My son's face changed. His wife said, "We were only trying to help." My daughter looked at her for a moment before she responded. She said, "I know what you were trying to do." I don't know what my son thought would happen after that. I think he believed I would be alone forever, and that time was on his side. I think he believed distance and patience would eventually wear me down. I think he miscalculated his sister. They left the house within the week. Said they'd found something. I don't know if that was true. I didn't ask. The morning after they moved out, I woke up at 5:30, the way I always do. I made coffee. I stood in my kitchen, and it was quiet in a way it hadn't been in over a year. Not empty, quiet. There's a difference. There was a cardboard box on the porch that morning. My son had left it some time before dawn. No knock, no note attached to the outside, just a box of things that had been in the guest room. Old tools, a jacket of mine, some books. I brought it inside and started going through it. At the bottom, under a pair of work gloves, was an envelope. Sealed. My name on the outside in handwriting I didn't recognize at first. Then I looked closer. It was my daughter's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a card, one of those plain white cards, and a piece of paper folded 3 times. The paper was a printout, a bank statement, a savings account I had never seen, opened in my name with my daughter listed as a co-holder. She had been depositing money into it for 2 years. Not large amounts, 200 here, 300 there, whatever she could manage after her bills. The balance was $11,000. I read the card. She had written, "Dad, I know you would never ask. I know you don't need saving, but I wanted you to have this. Not because you're old, not because I'm worried. Because I'm worried. Because you took care of me for 23 years and you never once made me feel like a burden. This is not charity. This is a daughter who loves her father. Use it for something that makes you happy. You've earned that." I sat down on the floor. I don't know how long I sat there. The coffee got cold. Light came through the kitchen window the way it does in early morning, that low gold color that only lasts about 10 minutes before it changes. I thought about all the times I had told her not to worry about me, all the times I'd said I was fine, all the times she called on Sundays and I gave her the short version of things so she wouldn't worry. She knew. She knew anyway. I called her at 7 that morning. She picked up on the second ring. I said, "I found the envelope." She said, "I figured you would." I said, "You didn't have to do this." She said, "Dad, I know." Neither of us said anything for a minute, and then she laughed a little and said, "Do me a favor. Don't tell me you're going to put it in a CD and save it for later. Please." I laughed too. For the first time in a long time, I laughed the way you laugh when something actually lands, when something in your chest loosens. I told her she needed to come visit. She said she'd look at flights that week. She said she missed the house. I looked around the kitchen, at her mother's table. At the walls we painted the summer she turned 16. At the window her mother always said, "Let in the best morning light of any window in any house she'd ever lived in." I said, "The house misses you too." I've thought a lot about what I would say to my son if he called. I've imagined that conversation 100 times. In some versions I'm angry. In some versions I'm tired. In some versions I say nothing at all. I don't know if he'll call. What I know is this: I built this life. I built it with my hands and my work and 31 years of showing up every single day. I built it alongside a woman I loved more than I knew how to say while she was alive. And I am still here, still in this house, still drinking coffee at 5:30 in the morning while the light comes in through the kitchen window. My son thought that kindness was weakness. He thought that because I let him in, he could take over. He thought that because I was lonely, I was desperate. He was wrong on all three counts. My daughter knew something different. She knew that a person can be soft and strong at the same time. She knew that love is not the same as surrender. If you're watching this and you have someone in your life who's trying to tell you that you need to be managed, listen to that feeling in your gut when something isn't right. I ignored that feeling for too long because I wanted to believe the best. That's not a flaw, but there's a point where generosity becomes permission. Don't give permission for that. I'm 67 years old. I run 3 miles every other morning. I have a daughter in Portland who loves me and a kitchen with good morning light and $11,000 I need to spend on something that makes me happy. Before I sign off, tell me, have you ever had someone underestimate you? Someone who looked at your age or your kindness and decided they knew better? Leave it in the comments. I want to hear from you. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Uncle Walter. Pull up a chair. I've been sitting with this story for a few months now, turning it over the way you turn over a stone you found on a walk. Not sure what you're looking for, just knowing there's something underneath worth understanding. Here's what I've come to. My son didn't become who he became overnight. That's the part people don't want to sit with, because it's uncomfortable. It's easier to say someone is just bad. It's harder to say, I saw the signs and I chose not to look. I let him move in because I was lonely. I let things slide because I wanted peace. I told myself it was generosity when sometimes it was just avoidance. I'm not saying I caused what he did. I'm saying I understood too late that there is a real difference between keeping your door open and leaving your house unguarded. What he did had a logic to it, not a moral logic, but a practical one. He looked at what I had, decided he deserved a shortcut, and then spent a year slowly trying to rearrange reality until the shortcut looked reasonable. He contacted my financial advisor. He walked a stranger through my house. He used the word reasonable like a weapon every time I said no. None of that happened because he was evil. It happened because he was willing to do something I wasn't willing to do, which was treat a family relationship like a transaction. That's the thing about people who take advantage of kindness. They're not usually calculating from day one. They start small. They test edges. And if the edges hold, they push harder. If the edges give, they push harder still. What I should have done, what I wish I had done, was hold the edge the first time, the first rearranged piece of furniture, the first conversation that assumed my house was a shared asset. I should have said, clearly and without apology, this is mine, and that line does not move. I didn't. And so the line moved, slowly, for 14 months. My daughter understood something I had to relearn. She understood that loving someone and protecting yourself are not opposites. She flew across the country with a folder of documents, and she sat at my kitchen table, and she was warm, and she was kind, and she was completely unmovable. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She just made clear that she knew exactly what was happening and that it was over. That takes a kind of intelligence that isn't about IQ. It's about being willing to see clearly when seeing clearly is hard. And the account, $11,000 she'd been setting aside for 2 years without telling me, not because she thought I was failing, because she understood, before I did, that the people closest to you are sometimes the ones who put you at risk, and she wanted me to have something that was only mine. I spent a lot of years thinking strength meant handling things alone, thinking that asking for help or accepting help was a kind of weakness. My son counted on that. He counted on me being too proud to call my daughter, too stubborn to lawyer up, too old-fashioned to believe someone I raised could really be doing what he was doing. He was wrong, but he almost wasn't. What I know now is this: resilience isn't just getting back up. It's being honest about how you got knocked down in the first place. It's looking at your own blind spots with the same clear eyes you'd use on anybody else. I loved my son, and that love made me slow. That's the truth. And the same love in my daughter made her fast. That's the difference between wisdom and wishful thinking. Wisdom sees what's there. Wishful thinking sees what you want to be there. I'm still in my house. The morning light still comes through the kitchen window the way my wife always said it did. And I'm still here, which is more than my son counted on.